This is Matt Trena. So we're going to run through today. We're going to run through some stuff we did in the beginning of the month, just touching on the bootloader. Tim's going to show you some application information for that. And then there's a host of things that are on the horizon. And we wanted to take the opportunity in this meeting to kind of show you where things have turned up as of late. Some pretty exciting things from communications to displays. And some trending things that are, again, all coming in the next few weeks here as we push out for prototypes and getting field tests in place. So first off, Tim's going to walk us through the bootloader information, kind of an abbreviated version. And if you have any specific questions, go ahead and ask. But we had covered a lot of this earlier in the month. So anyone who was already there, thanks for being there and with us today. And then we'll move on to some of the stuff that's new and upcoming, and again, pretty exciting stuff. So with that, I'll pass it off to Tim. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Matt. Like Matt said, we'll just try to keep this as brief as possible and move on to some of the newer stuff. So any of you that have attended earlier in the month, this will be review. But the version 3.0 will be released shortly. The biggest addition to that is the implementation of the bootloader. There's some other minor updates that I'll cover as well. You will have a new screen in the bootloader. Right now, when you go to the gear down in the lower right-hand corner of the DE-4000 display, it will pull up this menu here, and you go to System Info, and right now it just shows you the current version. The new bootloader screen will still show you the current version, but it also gives you the control of the loading of the bootloader process. Now, as soon as I come in here, you see that it's refreshing the list from the USB device. There will be, as we move beyond the bootloader and we release firmware, we will be providing a file that you can place on a USB thumb drive. And then this system will auto scan that USB. If you didn't have the USB plugged in at the time that you pulled this up, it would say, please insert, and then there would be a refresh button here. So the auto refresh, if it doesn't detect the USB installed, it'll just sit there and wait for you to plug it in. Once you plug it in, you hit the refresh, it'll do that same scan that it just did automatically that you guys saw there. Now, while it was doing the scan, these firmware available buttons were disabled. If by chance we release a firmware and it only has a control module update, or it only has the web application update, then that file, it will scan and it may show available for one board and nothing for the other board. So these would be disabled if there wasn't a version available. So this scan through the USB I've got, it's got 2 versions for the control, 2 versions for the terminal, and 2 versions for the web application. So when you select whichever board you want, you get your choices down here of every version that's available on that USB drive. There are permissives built into the system. You cannot do a update to the firmware if any of these conditions are not met. You've got all these green checks here. You do have to be logged in either in factory or admin mode to do the update. You have to be in state 0, so you got to shut the unit down, and then it has to confirm that we have no RPM input. If I trigger this, you can see now I have RPM input. It gives me an X and it disables the proceed to update. So we won't allow you to go any further if any of these conditions aren't met. You can see here I unselected a file, so that's also a condition. So as long as you've got the file and you got it selected, you can proceed. It'll give you a confirm. you'll verify the board that you're updating and the file that you're updating. And then there's a safety precaution update, and then you hit the begin to update. I'm not going to show you guys that because I don't want you guys to have to sit through just watching a progress bar. But I've got some screenshots here. Again, the USB drive is going to be plugged into the control module right next to the Ethernet connector that the HMI currently plugs into. You'll want to wait 30 seconds after you plug it in before you hit that refresh. That gives it time to auto mount the USB, and then it'll scan it. So here's an example of that progress bar. It's going to go through a whole bunch of different messages, depending on what board you're updating or if you're updating the web app. And then if everything's successful, you'll get this success message here. Once you hit the close, it will auto refresh the version that shows up right here, which is the current version. So that'll auto refresh. The web application is the only unique one. When you update the web application, it is actually going to force all connected clients to do a complete refresh. So what will happen is if you're on your laptop, your browser will refresh that page and you'll end up back at the dashboard screen. That's necessary because the web application actually, when you load the web page in a browser, it sends the web application up to the browser. So you have to force a refresh to get the new version of the web application with all the new features that you just installed. So that'll, web app will refresh and bring you back to the main dashboard page, but all the others, the boards will just refresh this version number automatically without you having to jump away from this screen. A couple minor updates that we've done. We have had the ability to adjust the background colors on LEDs. We've added LED colors, and those LED colors for these DS outputs, that LED color is in the label. So when you put in this label here, if you just right next to the background color, you put a comma and then put the color that you want. The colors available for the LED currently, if you don't have anything in there, it's going to default to the green that you have all seen before. That's standard. You can put a G in there for green if you want. We have R for red, a Y for yellow, and then we have an A for an amber, which is like an orangish yellow. So that's where you'd want to set those. If you had a virtual, so this is an SVirt that's monitoring the input channel 2. Essentially, to change that, it's in the value. So anyone that's done any custom scripting, you have the set SVirt. So now you would set that to a 1, and this is a string. You set it to a 1, which turns the LED on. But now we have the ability, again, background color and LED color. So you can do that as an example here. I'm monitoring this channel. If I'm less than 50, I'm going to be green. If I'm 50 to 100, I'm going to be yellow. And if I'm greater than 100, I'm going to be red. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. I'm going to bump this up, get above 50. So there you see it automatically switch to yellow. I can go back and forth. And then if I get up over 100, it goes red. So a lot of flexibility there. The other thing that we've implemented is, for a while, you've been able to do custom status strings in here. Primarily, we've utilized that in certain applications during startup to have like manual purge and stuff like that, where we can put messages on this status bar at the bottom. But along with that, now we can do custom alarms. So, and I've just got this in the script linked. If I get above 20, it goes to a custom alarm. Now, all you have to do is start your message, your status string, with the word alarm. And then you can put whatever details you want in here. So it's just a simple status string. So status string, it's an svert. I just set it to this string. And then you got to make sure you clear that string so you can get your standard messages like the ready to start or the running if you were up and running, because that'll override that running string. So whenever the condition clears itself, you want to just put an empty string in there.
Will it log those custom alarms in the event log?
Currently not, but we are working on implementing that just like the custom faults do now. So that will get implemented into the events as well. But as of right now, we just have the visual side of it. Good question, though. So those are some of the minor changes. Moving on, we're going to be implementing data logging and trending. The trending, there's going to be two components to that. There's going to be the native trending, which everyone's seen the trending that we currently have. We are going to move that in underneath the channels, where each channel has its own independent trending graph. And then we'll have a button. This is a button right now, but we're probably going to move that over here, have like a side string. When you hit that, it will move you into the larger trending. And we will be doing a slightly different trend graph, which I will show you guys. So we're looking at different ways that we can improve the user experience in the graph, and there's a lot of different built-in stuff in the packages that are already in the 4000 that we just have to implement. So this is an example. I know some of you on this were on an earlier call where we demonstrated some of this. But this graph here is pulling in data, and it's displaying 3 different channels. So, and just with a simple click of a button, we can go to different types of graphs within the one graph. So here we've got 3 channels. We can turn on or off individual channels. And so for like our system, when you start at the channels, you got that one graph. You hit the button, it will bring you into the trends still with that one channel, and then we'll have an add button where you can start adding additional channels onto that graph and look at them side by side. So you can do side by side like this, and then we can also do a merged graph. But the really exciting thing was some of the newer HMIs that have the multi-touch capability. Built into this, we can do pinch and zoom. Here on my desktop, I'll just zoom in with my mouse. So you can see wherever my cursor is, it's slowly zooming me in. And then I can click and drag, which you'll be able to do on the HMI as well. So you can just navigate very quickly. And as you can see, by having, this example just has 3 channels. But you could definitely utilize this for troubleshooting and seeing a lot of different channels side by side over time.
Shouldn't we explain though that to be able to do this, it has to be a system that's equipped with the ACM and the newer display. Is that true?
Yes, we'll try to implement some of this stuff in the native trends, but you may not have all of the usability. But we are going to clean up and improve the existing trends page. But all this capability with the pinch and zoom and the scroll should be accessible as long as the HMI has the multi-touch capability. This should all be accessible in the built-in channels one as well. So you'll be able to zoom in and out and scroll back and forth and see all of that active data, and then back into historical data as well.
But
So
this screen you're showing right here, though, it's going to be accessible on our base unit using our standard HMI, where we can pick and actually see 1 point trending if that's what we choose, and go from there.
Yep, 1 point trending, and then you'll be able to pop out of that into the multi-channel graphing and customize those graphs for specific applications and what channels you want to see side by side.
So Curtis, just to answer your question, the first thing you kind of mentioned there, this is pretty much already implemented in the 4000 that will be coming out soon. The stuff that Tim was showing in the other screen will be implemented on the ACM 4000 first, that then has the ability for all the advanced displays with an HMI port. And then we're going to back annotate that into the current situation of the DE-4000 and see what it can handle without being, drugged down, because the ACM has quite a bit more power. So that's kind of what's driving a lot of the ability to do this stuff. But then the multi-touch and zooming and all that should be available. The question is, how much power can we do on this? So the first release of this advanced trending will be on the ACM, like you had mentioned originally. The other screen that we just showed is pretty much in the DE-4000 now and live as he's showing it to you. So that'll come natively. And then the question will be, how much advanced stuff can we actually put in the current 4000 that we have today? And we don't have the answer now because we're finishing up and writing everything for the ACM 4000. But that'll be the goal, is to get some of that advanced stuff on the DE-4000 as well. But if you want full featured, the ACM is the way to go.
Yeah, and yes. It may be one of these things where from a user experience, the navigation and manipulation of the graph, we could do all the more advanced manipulation in the native DE-4000, but we may have to limit the amount of data. How much can it draw? Because that's really what bogs down the system, is how many data points are you looking at? And then obviously here, this is a very smooth, in and out pan. We may not have that ability because of the processing limitations of the 4000 as far as getting these data points, because it has to store all these data points, and the 4000's actively pulling in fresh data points as you go. So this example isn't doing that. It's just one block of data, but it's easy enough to just keep tacking on more data at the end as time goes by.
Exactly, and that's the point I wanted to bring up is, we have to differentiate between, devices and stuff. I mean, for the sales group, we don't want to just a firmware update to be able to do all these functions that you're describing. I just want some clarity on what systems does what. Base system will do, what we're thinking here. Then the expanded data log and expanded trending, pinch points, up and down and stuff. That'll come with a purchase of the ACM and the, TrueView or whatever the latest display is.
Yeah. So we're going to start.
Yep.
Yeah. Good point. We're going to start with the ACM because it has the power. But like Matt said, we're going to kind of, go back after we've got that all implemented and see how much of this we can improve, because there's a lot of improvement we can make, even on this page here, the traditional one, as far as being able to adjust and build the graphs, and manipulating like the scales of the graphs and labeling and just layout improvement and navigation improvement. Because like right now you've got these 3 graphs and you've got to go into global trends to tell it what channels. So it's a bit cumbersome. You got to go multiple places. So we want to improve that, make that experience a lot easier for the user to be able to customize these graphs. So yeah, for now it'll be in the more advanced will be in the ACM. But we're also, with some of the stuff that Brian has been working on, which I'll segue into his stuff. But we want to be able to implement, like the ACM and the AWIs and some of these other components into a seamless user interface. That so it doesn't seem like, from the user experience, you're never having to navigate to a bunch of different things separately, and we kind of package that all, side by side with each other. So with that, I think I want to hand it over to Brian to go into more detail on that. I'm not sure, Brian, if you got something you want to present. I just stopped sharing my screen there for you.
Tim, I have one other question, since I'm question man today.
Yeah, Curtis.
Well, no, we started implementing our other devices into the DE-4000, and I'm asking this because I get asked these questions. Will we be able to pick and choose from those products into a trending format with this? I'm pretty sure on the base DE-4000 we won't, but the ACM stuff in the new display. So say we have a CPU 95 that what we are communicating with, that we're displaying on the new display, would we be able to pick and choose, say, our Spark diagnostics and trend those through the external devices?
So let me take that one, Curtis. So Brian is going to show some stuff that I think you've already seen, but I guess I'll comment on that by saying, with the addition of the ACM and doing the trending and the data logging first on there, with again having all the advancements to it, the first you would start and say, well, it could do any product at that point, right? So we're looking at, and I know this is DE-4000 related, but if you talk about the ACM, we're going to be able to data log the AFR 500 for emissions and meeting permits and stuff, right? So that was one example with the gateway, and then just some expansions to that with what Brian's going to show you. The menu structure, I guess the seamless user interface is really the hurdle, but outside of that, everything being brought through this experience that everyone's going to see now, once the trending's in there, it's actually using that backbone of the gateway. So it's not like they're two independent things. So the trending is going to be, just for a little bit of background, it's not going to be pinging each device, because that would kind of limit you in the future. So what it's actually doing is asking the ACM, what data do you have? And then if it doesn't have it, the gateway will go get it and respond to what's trying to draw the graphs. So when you do that, if you have this big collection point from 95s, DETs, VSMs, DE-4000, you name it, right? It's collecting it and putting it in a database. Well, now you can, through one environment for the user, trend any of those points. So it's a step away. What you're asking is a step away from what we have, but because of how it's been designed, that is kind of the point. Your question is what we're driving towards, is a unified environment for all of these features, not just one independent one. So the answer is yes, that will be able to happen.
Thank you.
But Brian's going to show you the first step, and then hopefully what I just talked about will make a little more sense. So absolutely, Curtis. Go ahead, Brian. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. So I want to start off by talking about the Altronic web interface, which is an interface that we've created that allows us to display interfaces for legacy products and even new products that are based on Modbus communication. It allows us to quickly create new interfaces and replacements for what was traditionally done through our Windows-based terminal programs. It allows us to create an interface using web technology for any of those devices that support Modbus. And so what you see me sharing here is an example of the Altronic web interface for an AFR 500 single bank configuration. And as you see here, it's a combination of display elements such as buttons, LEDs, text boxes that display numerical values, input boxes where you can modify a value. We can do radial gauges, linear gauges, so a whole multitude of different types of display elements. So those can all be laid out according to the user preference and rearranged very easily. Kind of in the same way that we can drop and arrange display elements on a DE-4000 dashboard page, but with a lot more flexibility. Another big advantage of the Altronic web interface is the way that it adapts to different screen layouts and screen resolutions. And so you can see as I go from a wide screen to a narrow screen, it automatically scales everything and flows everything to fit the dimensions of the screen I'm working with. And what this allows us to do is display the same interface on a narrow device such as a mobile phone, as well as a wide device such as a laptop or one of our touch displays or a tablet. And so as you can see here, once we have a dashboard page, I can easily edit that dashboard, and I can click on a new open block and add a new screen element, define how large I want that to be, and then I can go to the list of available Modbus registers, and let's say I want to show the current stepper position. I can select that, and then I could change the display type to a radial gauge. And if I put in a minimum and a maximum for that radial gauge, and then I can resize that to be whatever size I want. And so that's the way that the Altronic web interface allows us to display the interface for connected devices. And so what I want to show briefly here is something that we demonstrated recently. Let me share a different screen here. So let me just share my whole screen here. So if you can see this, can you see that the screen I'm sharing with the DE-4000 and on the side is a
Yes.
Altronic
Yep.
web
Yes, we
interface?
can,
Okay.
Brian.
All right. So what this is showing is with the ACM 4000 and one of our newer widescreen displays, we're able to consolidate the DE-4000 display on the same screen as any number of additional products that either could be Altronic devices or other third-party devices, as long as they have Modbus support. And so what we demonstrated recently is an application where we're able to install an Acticom, a CPU 95, a DET 1600, an AFR 500, a VSM 400, all in conjunction with a DE 4000. And this shows how we're able to arrange that so that you can see the entire DE 4000 interface, and then on the extra space we have on the right side of the screen, you can also see the interface for each of those other devices. Now, what I'm sharing here is just a static image, so I can't show you today how that actually works but if I were to click on any of these other buttons, it would bring up their display. So if I were to click on the Acticom, it would bring up the Altronic web interface for the Acticom and display it in this area on the right-hand side, and I would be able to scroll up and down through that interface. And again, the interface is completely flexible and can be adapted to the preferences of the user or the customer. And so this is a way that we're able to incorporate a large number of devices in a single panel, but implement just one display instead of having to have multiple displays or having devices that have no display and having to connect a terminal program just to be able to view or configure that device. So this is just something we wanted to preview today as far as things that we have in the works and some of the ability that we have to integrate the DE-4000 along with other products in more of a consolidated fashion, where it feels like a single system as opposed to a bunch of individual products. And in conjunction with that, we're also actively working on the ability to gather J1939 CAN data from CAT controllers such as the Atom3 or Atom4 controller, and bring that data into the DE-4000 or into the through the ACM 4000, which acts as the gateway, and that will also be visible either through the AWIs you're seeing here or through dashboard screens on the DE-4000. So I believe we have another session scheduled here in a few weeks where we'll show the J1939 CAN communication in some more detail. But I just wanted to mention that as far as some of the new developments that we're actively working on. So that's really all that I had to present today. But if there's any questions on any of that, I'd be happy to address those.
Folks, any questions for Brian or for Tim or for Mr. Trina? my
So
sleeves.
Brian,
Go ahead,
you're
Curtis. Yeah.
you're basically saying though, once you get your 1939 stuff from the Atom, we'll be able to go probably to the device builder if you're planning on building a Modbus register table where it's converting the CAN bus to Modbus. You'll be able to build a 3516 screen for whatever the Atom monitors and be able to preview it right there from the DE-4000 screen also and trend from it.
That's correct. You could do that, or you could even add the individual registers onto one of the dashboard pages of the DE-4000, you know, as an external device. So there will be a lot of capability and flexibility as to how we're able to integrate with the those CAT systems.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
current, just as a, for the demonstration that Brian was just showing you, actually the 4 of the products were on Modbus RTU over 485, and then the AFR 500 was connected to Ethernet. So just as a demonstration of what it's able to do already, it was taking in 2 completely different protocols. And I think we actually had 3 devices on one bus for the 485, 1 device on another bus because there's 2 on the ACM. So if you, for example, if you have 2 devices that you can't change the node number on, this is a way to deal with that where each bus could have node number 1, so you could actually deal with that conflict. So we had 2 of those buses running and Ethernet pulling the AFR 500 in for 5 different products and displaying on that demo that Brian just showed you. So it's very powerful, and it ties directly into the DE-4000. That's why we wanted to preview that today. But it'll also tie into the data logging. So once you start pulling everything in, you'll be able to pull all, you know, pick and choose what you want to put onto a USB or micro SD card to data log. And there's some really exciting things for that. That is the code's being written now that we'll demo for you in a few weeks here. But it's going to be exciting because one of the nicest features is going to be that I think we're going to be able to export a tool. So there's we're pushing hard to have our usual CSV files and kind of those things, but the team they've come up with the idea of being able to export that web file. So you'll be able to essentially look at a user interface, but with all the data behind it and scroll in and out and move things around. So just some interesting and really cool advancements to the integration of the ACM and DE-4000 that, again, you'll see here as things roll out. But we wanted to preview for today, and I'm personally excited about it. So yeah, it's going to be good.
So basically, Matt, what you're saying is by running it all through the DE-4000, we're doing our customers a big service here because we're putting it all in one packet where they'll have to do it on their SCADA system in multiple different packets for different devices. Is that true?
Yeah, so I guess we're taking some of that work out of it for them. They could still use their SCADA and they can still pull all of the raw information out of one place. So once it's in the ACM, they could just hook up over their network and ping the ACM. But if they don't want to do that, we're doing all the integration for them, and they can use the DE-4000 with everything there on a display. And you know, you could use the DE-4000 display over here, and you could run some other cable and host that same thing from the ACM. You could host it over the network. You can ping the website on the ACM, and you could put that on a big screen in whatever, you know, some area that's not by the engine or compressor.
Oh yeah,
So
we're
once it's on
picking
the
and
network,
choosing
you
for
can
them.
look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds
yeah.
good.
It's we've done some stuff that's really, you know, once it's all laid in there, it's pretty cool. Brian has, you know, we've had information over here, you know, local, and then Brian is remotely looking at it over the network, but completely displaying, you know, everything that you just saw, but in a completely different area, right? So it's very powerful in that regards. And I don't know, Brian, were you on the ACM for that demo, or were you on your PC? I think you were on your PC for that.
Yeah.
But the first time we had looked at this, just as kind of an interesting kind of tidbit of information, Brian was actually on the Teams call sharing his screen from the ACM 4000. It's that powerful. He just joined with the link and was on the call with us using audio, video, and the screens and sharing it and doing all that live. So yeah, pretty powerful stuff coming down the pike. So
Sounds like it. The only other question I have is with Tim, kind of explain to the group that when you do the bootloader firmware updates, all of our applications does not have to have a firmware update. That's only for newer implementation of our newer things like the trending and stuff. But also with the JSON file, it's true, right, Tim, that they won't have to upload the program or the JSON in the DE-4000. It'll all do it simultaneously with the bootloader firmware updates.
Yeah, moving from the bootloader on, we won't purge the existing configuration. So if there's a configuration in there and you do the complete update on all the boards and the web application, in the past, the web application was what was on the micro SD card, and that would purge the configuration on update, and then you'd have to reload your configuration. So you always had to back up ahead of time and then reload it. So we're moving away from that. It's going to continue to have that original configuration when you go through it, but we are going to have like a standalone package that can be put on a micro SD card and run through that will purge the configuration. So if you ever had an issue or you needed to pull a control board off of an older unit and use it in another application, you could just wipe it out without having to do anything complicated. And I didn't go into this. Let me share. All right, so the file that you will receive for every firmware update beyond the bootloader, it will have a file called bootloader with the revision number, and it's a .atf. This is what gets placed on the USB drive. So you can just drop in as many as you want. This file is a zip file. So you can unzip it with any standard zip, and inside of it will contain the applications for each of the boards, along with the update ATF that you guys are all used to. So that's still there. We also will be having the SREC files that you guys are all familiar with using the ST link with the cable. From bootloader on, any SREC that includes the bootloader code as well as the application code. So it has both of those packaged together in one big file to be loaded using the ST link like we did in the past. Those have a new extension S19. That is an SREC file extension, but we wanted to differentiate between the older legacy SRECs that were just the pre-bootloader, no bootloader code in it, to the ones that include bootloader as well as the application. So those will all get packaged into the file as well. So if you had a system that didn't have the bootloader on it, like it just was sitting at 2.0, and we're up at like 3.1, 3.2 or something like that, instead of making you do the 3.0 release and then jump up to the the newer version. Within that newer version, we'll have essentially an SREC, an S19 file that gives you the bootloader code as well as the application all in one file that you load using the existing process that you guys are all familiar with today with the ST-Link and the cabling. So that'll all be packaged in there as well. And that'll go out with every single firmware release. You'll have the ability to load it the traditional way with the special cable, or just with the USB drive and the user interface that I showed you the screens on. And that's all I got. Matt, you got anything else to?
Folks, anything for our engineering team, for Mr. Trina, for Brian, or for Tim? Guys, again, an excellent review here today. We appreciate it. Obviously, DE-4000 continues to have a lot of locomotive power behind it. As Tim has mentioned a couple of times there, I think the addition of the ACM for this product and really its applicability in all of the new products that are coming forward here gives us a wonderful platform to add lots of new capabilities to DE-4000, AFR 500, and all the products that are coming, inclusive of even marshaling in data from existing or legacy serial capable devices, either our own or others. So this DE-4000 is really maturing into a world-class system here that's applicable and competitive with virtually any system that's out there on the market, including the big box stuff from Allen Bradley and Siemens, as well as the competitive products here that are other providers are delivering to the market. So we have a good base that we can offer to our customers for sure. So guys, questions for our engineering folks? Going once, going twice.
I got a question. I'm Pat with Global.
Go ahead, Pat.
Is there any way y'all could go back to those connections that y'all have like on the 3000 instead of the ones you have now? They're harder to put your meter on. I know this isn't a software issue, it's more of an engineering. It would just make it easier for us to check it when we're out in the field, rather than having to have a paper clip and stick it in there to see if we got it bolted.
There are actual probes that will fit into those spots that clip onto the end of your meter leads.
Yeah.
This is John. The fluke part number is called T as in Tom, P as in Paul, 88. And it is an extension probe that slides over your standard fluke probe, and it has a very, very fine needle on it. I'm not going to sit here and say you don't have to take a razor blade the first time out of the box and cut off just a little bit of this fine outer insulation, but it fits perfectly into those small test probe ports in line with the spring release button on those terminals.
And
this is Matt Trina. Oh, go ahead, John. Give him that part number.
John, just send it to me and I can forward it to them all if you could, please, sir.
This is Matt Trina. I wanted to touch on your original question about maybe changing them. And all the guys have jumped in here because I think this has been for as many people who like them. I think there's as many people who don't like them, and it's I don't think you'll win in either direction. But the base reason that they were chosen was because they, from a technical point of view, they are more robust to vibration. And if they're done properly, then you have less errors and they're quicker to wire. So there were some technical reasons we did that. And I can tell you, I don't think unless, every person on this call were to personally write an email saying they wanted to change, I don't think the decision could be swayed. the other direction. But I just wanted to provide a little bit of feedback about why they were chosen. And then obviously, as long as you have the right tools, they are a really good connector to be able to use and troubleshoot. But for what we have today, I don't think they'll be going back to screw terminals anytime soon. So, but good question, and hopefully the information that the guys could have provided here will help you out in the field. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.